Good morning again. I had the pleasure yesterday of meeting our next speaker for the first time and found out we had some things in common with her being from down in my part of the country, West Texas. And I also found out that one of my areas of research is Area 51, so I was quite interested in what Karen had to say in his excellent presentation about the new museum up in Las Vegas. So we're extremely pleased to have Karen Green from Las Vegas with us this morning. She's the curator of the Smithsonian-affiliated National Atomic Testing Museum located in Las Vegas, Nevada. As the curator of one of a handful of private non-profit national museums, Karen oversees the museum's permanent and temporary exhibits and the collections. She has been a curator for over 20 years. Karen designed the National Atomic Testing Museum, extremely popular exhibit about UFOs and Area 51. The exhibit titled Area 51, Myth or Reality enables museum visitors to learn more about America's most secret military installation. Over 4 years in the making and development, with assistance from individuals who actually worked at the secret base, the exhibit explores both the myths and the realities of Area 51 and addresses the secrecy that surrounds it. The audience is encouraged to take a walk down the extraterrestrial highway and experience the interactive educational and entertaining exhibit where visitors decide for themselves what is myth and what is reality. Please help me welcome Karen Green.
Thank you, Dennis. I am Karen Green. I'm the curator of the National Atomic Testing Museum in Las Vegas, Nevada, not Las Vegas, New Mexico. And today we're going to take you on a journey from an idea to an exhibit and what it takes to actually put it together. I'm going to show you first our promo video.
Did you say you were associated with the Smithsonian?
Yes, we are an affiliate. That's a 30-second video that we made as part of the promotion for this exhibit. And that video actually went up in our museum over a year before the exhibit itself opened, which meant that we had to have already conceived, designed, and had all the research done for this exhibit. So why Area 51? Well, before the Atomic Testing Museum opened in 2005, we did a survey. There were a number of focus groups that came together, and those focus groups said the one thing they really wanted to know about was Area 51. Again, in 2007, I did a survey of visitors to our museum and discovered that's still what people wanted to know about. So how did I put Area 51 in with my mission, which is, at that time, the history of the Nevada test site? The Nevada test site is 1,378 square miles of government-owned property in the middle of the state of Nevada. It was founded in 1951 as the on-site, on-continent proving grounds for atomic weapons. The Nevada test site has had 100 atmospheric nuclear shots and 946 known underground shots, so over 1,000 atomic bombs that went off 65 miles from the city of Las Vegas, Nevada. The Nevada test site, when it was founded, was put into areas, and each area was actually established as part of an accounting system, and one of the areas was Area 51. It is on the northeast corner of the Nevada test site. There are roads going in and out of the Nevada test site into Area 51. And when Area 51 became a CIA facility in the mid-50s, the test site workers and the Area 51 workers actually shared jobs. They went back and forth. For the most secret place in America, it wasn't actually secret if you were part of the Nevada test site, because they had a monthly newsletter that came out, and in that newsletter it would have scores from the baseball teams, the Area 51 baseball players with all their names, and the Nevada test site baseball players with all their names. When you went to work in Area 51 in the 1950s, you were not allowed to live in the state of Nevada. Your family did not know that you worked at Area 51. Your wife was given a number of a vendor as an emergency contact number, and if your wife called that number, they would find out, be answered, the telephone would be answered as that vendor, and they would get a message to your husband. So my problem was, how do I get an exhibit about a place that nobody knows anything about, that's classified still today, and you know, where am I going to find my sources? Now, how classified is it? This is my DOE classification badge. I belong to a private museum, but I have a storage facility on the Nevada test site. I have to go every year and be rebadged to get on that particular facility. I also have to have a federal camera permit to take pictures on the Nevada test site. This will get me into the Nevada test site. It will allow me to go on the Nellis Gunnery Range. It will also allow me to get courtesy into Creech, but it doesn't get me into Area 51. So Area 51, the exhibit. We decided to call it Myth or Reality. We started out with reality, and it was 4 years in the making from after I found my sources. We had to develop a design. We changed it 4 or 5 times. We had to have a cast of characters, experts, speakers, builders, historians, and we needed to find the people we needed to know and build relationships with them. The first contact, Roadrunners International, was a group of people who I didn't know anything about. T.D. Barnes came. This is T.D. T.D. was the president of Roadrunners International. And the Roadrunners International turned out to be a very interesting relationship group. T.D. started talking to me about working on the ranch, Watertown, Groom Lake, Paradise Ranch, Dreamland, and I'm going, T.D., what are you talking about? And he leaned over and he whispered in my ear, Area 51. I said, T.D., can you actually tell me anything about that? And he said, yes. And what T.D. wanted to do was to bring a group of people, the Roadrunners International, to the museum to be able to talk about the work they did in Nevada for the very first time. These were the men who had worked on the secret projects that had just been declassified. They designed the projects, built the projects, they flew the projects, and they'd never talked about them before. They wanted a place to start building their legacy. Of course, T.D. did talk about that too. So these are things like the U2 program, Project Oxcart, the projects for the A-12, the YF-12A, the stealth technology, reverse engineering. U2.
Oh my God, what really happened? I must be dead. I really got much of them. Somebody went, gosh, don't feel bad being dead isn't so bad. What's I really worried about? And then I became fully conscious. And I realized, my God, I'm out of the airplane.
This is Bill Weaver. Bill Weaver came to speak at a lecture on the YF-12A. It was the first time the designers, builders, and other people with the YF-12A had come out and actually talked about the airplane. This was the interceptor fighter version of the A-12. Bill Weaver actually crashed and lived to tell about it in the YF-12A. These are the kinds of people that I needed to get the reality part from. The U-2, the bird of prey, the SR-71 stealth technology.
Those were all developed there?
They were all parts of the thing. This is Tony. Tony was one of the 3 of the 4 living U-2 pilots. This, of course, is the U-2, which was the first plane developed at Area 51. U-2 was incredibly unstable. The stall speed and the maximum cruise speed are 12 miles per hour apart. They crashed a lot. You can see the long wingspan. The David Clark Company came on board as experts. They're the ones who designed this special flight suit, the pressure suit. A pressure suit is needed to keep a pilot from having decompression sickness. It has 100% oxygen, which the pilot actually breathes 1 hour prior to going into the airplane. It keeps their blood from boiling at high altitudes or freezing. This is what we have in our exhibit. It's one of the only U-2 pressure flight suits still in existence. Every one of the pilots in these special programs lived with a doctor. The doctor was their bunkmate. Their doctor would check with them to make sure that they were physically fit to fly, that they got the oxygen they needed prior to flight, and after the flight, they would check them out psychologically. The pilots had fictitious names. Not even the doctor knew who they were. They all went under these fictitious IDs. So this is how it was very compartmentized. It was very secret, even each program.
So when it made contact with the oxygen, the tab, it ignited and it would ignite the fuel. Because JP7 was not real flammable. That was JP7, the fuel that we you could have a bucket of fuel and throw a match in it, it wouldn't burn.
This is Ken Collins. Ken Collins is one of the most decorated pilots of the A-12 SR-71 Blackbird group. Ken Collins is talking about the special fuel developed for the A-12 through the SR-71 Blackbird. It did not ignite with matches. It had a special fuel propulsion system. The power plants and the fuel, the wheels, the cameras, all of the technology on these airplanes was developed. It was developed across many platforms, across many men, and a lot of times they didn't know each other. And so when we had our symposium at the museum, it was the first time that you actually got to put all of these people together in one room, in one area, and they visited and talked, they brought all of their artifacts, and it was great. Ken Collins is the only man to survive bailing out an SR-71 Blackbird at 60,000 feet upside down. So you have all of these different technologies at Area 51, and I started getting together my sources for the reality of it, all of these men. And, you know, I started looking around, well, who knows a lot about it besides the roadrunners and the guys that actually worked there? And so one thing that happened in 2011, if you were around prior to that, our symposium went under the name Groom Lake, because as a government employee, you were not allowed to refer to Area 51 as Area 51. It was Groom Lake. And so in 2011, they declassified for the very first time the name Area 51, so we got to use that. This is Peter Merlin. Peter Merlin is an aviation historian, an ex-plane hunter. That means he goes out when a plane crashes, an experimental plane, and finds pieces of it. He's an author, historian. He works for Dryden Research Center at NASA. Peter not only has mapped Area 51, he's mapped every building on Area 51, and he has a lot of knowledge about it, and I'm lucky to have Peter as part of my team.
Charles Johnson proposed naming the base Paradise Ranch. An ironic choice, but the only building is George Trick, the rural workers for the UP project.
What Peter just said was that Kelly Johnson nicknamed Area 51 as Paradise Ranch, probably to entice people to come out and work at Area 51. If you've ever been out to Rachel or to Nevada or Area 51, it is very desolate, it's hot, it's cold, it's windy, it's dusty. And originally the guys lived in trailers. You can see those at Peter, behind here and Peter. There was a club they built out of scrap metal which served great food. Only thing they really did have was great food. They would work all week, sometimes 24 hours a day, and then they would fly home, and that's the way projects were done. This is part of the Mount Charleston plane crash artifacts. This is one of the belt buckles. I also have the data plate that is in my collection. The other things that we have are the propeller, the radio, the yoke, numerous portions of this plane that went down on Mount Charleston. This happened in 1955 in November. It was a plane from Palmdale, or the Lockheed Skunk Works. It carried 14 engineers and scientists that were working on the U-2 program at the time. It went off course and it crashed into Mount Charleston, which sits above Las Vegas, Nevada. It took 20 hours for a mounted sheriff's posse to actually reach the crash. And the funny thing was, the Air Force came in, they made sure that nobody, they restricted everything, said you can't go up there, nothing's happened. But you could actually see the smoke coming off the plane, and people knew that a plane had crashed. For 4 decades, secrecy surrounded this crash. And it wasn't until 1998 that this plane crash was actually declassified. So for 4 decades, the families of the 14 people lost, the scientists and engineers, didn't know anything more than their loved one who worked for fill-in-the-blank company, General Mills, could be anything, General Dynamics. They didn't know what they did, had died in a plane crash in Nevada. They didn't know where, they didn't know how. And so we went and worked with a group called the Silent Heroes of the Cold War. This is under a man named Steve Ryrie. And Steve Ryrie is an Eagle Scout, found the plane site, the crash site, picked up a piece of the plane, and then had dreams about it for years and years and years. As an adult, he started bringing pieces of the plane down and storing them in his garage. And he was haunted by the ghosts that he feels are attached to this plane. And when I said, Steve, I really want to put something about this in this exhibit, he said, great, because my wife can't wait to get this stuff out of the garage, and maybe the ghost will go with it. I can't tell you if we do have a ghost in there, though some people think we do. So we had a lot about the reality of Area 51, and that's where this exhibit started. But as I'm sitting there thinking and looking at what visitors are telling me, they want to know about the myth. They want to know what really goes on out there. And so I started looking at it and I said, okay, what can I do as a curator to bring the myths into this exhibit? And so we started looking at the unanswered questions, and we decided we wanted to address both sides. We wanted to explore the realities of the myths. What could we prove? What couldn't we prove? And what didn't we know? And so we started with the myths of Area 51. So the first thing is the man in black. Who are they? What are they? Where do they come from? What could, people say CIA.
Well, that's Will Smith,
McMillan, yes. Actually, that's our man in black. But CIA, the United States Air Force, well, we found out in 1967, Project Blue Book said, the men in black are not from any government agency. So, who are they? What did they do? Are they extraterrestrial? We don't know. But we needed to have a man in black in our exhibit.
And remember, everything you're about to see and do in here is classified. So don't tell anyone.
Our man in black, of course, comes from the 1950s. If you look at some of the recreations of what supposedly goes on in Area 51, there's always that government kind of mysterious agent who's in there. And we wanted him to be a reoccurring theme. We also wanted to address the secrecy at Area 51, most secret place in America. It is still a working facility, and it is still extraordinarily classified. So, we had one myth, the man in black. I needed another expert. I needed the UFO man, George Knapp.
My name is George Knapp. I'm an investigative reporter. I've been a journalist for about 32 years here in Las Vegas. I've chased everything from political corruption to organized crime, but probably till the day I die, I'll be known as a UFO reporter because for the past 25 years, I've been investigating stories about Area 51.
George Knapp has a fabulous reputation. He has 3 Peabodys, 19 Emmy Awards. He has done all kinds of research into UFOs, and since the day that George started reporting in Las Vegas, people have come to him to talk to him about UFOs, about what goes on at Area 51. So I knew I needed George aboard, and luckily George came aboard. And I got to be here when we filmed George at his house, and this is like 15 rooms of research, file cabinets, all kinds of stuff that he has, and he said, help yourself. So George is a very big part of the research on the myth side, and George, of course, said the same thing that I did. How do we prove, what do we know about the myths that's real? What do we know maybe about them? And George came on and started helping to research that. Now George came into the limelight with this guy, Bob Lazar. The Bob Lazar story, November 1989, he was the guy who wrote the story on Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar said he got hired to do reverse engineering at S4 Papoose Lake, that there were aliens at Area 51, that the spaceship, the propulsion was element 115, and a number of other things. This interview was when the international press started to take notice of Area 51. And it was one of the first times that publicly people started putting Roswell and the saucer that went to Wright-Patterson, that went to Area 51. And Bob Lazar, of course, was discredited. Hang on. So, one of the things about it, they said Bob Lazar said he worked at Los Alamos. Los Alamos said Bob Lazar didn't work here. One of the artifacts that we have in our exhibit proves that Bob Lazar worked at Los Alamos. Other things that Bob Lazar said, element 115 actually was discovered this last year. Not a lot of it, but discovered. And there have been other things about Bob Lazar. We're trying to bring Bob and George back together at our museum next year, so we hope we are. We have a number of George's artifacts. George went to Russia, and he went to Russia to explore 2 things. One was the Russian Roswell incident, and the second thing was UFOs hovering over their missile system and turning it on. This was a great trip, and George has wonderful photos and talks about it. But as I was talking to George, I said, well, fine, you were over in Russia, you saw the Roswell incident, what did you bring back, George? And he said, well, I have a couple pieces of the crash. You want them? And I said, you have some UFO artifacts? And he said, yes. So we have those in our exhibit too, along with the analysis from the Russian government and analysis from America on these particular pieces of the site.
What do you mean you discovered an element? You mean a new element in the
Yeah, an element, yes, it was an element 115 that nobody viewed. There are elements you know are there by the things that don't exist, but the element itself had never been found until this last year.
And what's it called?
It's element 115, it's utopian. It's a radioactive element. So we got our research together, and then we had to build an exhibit. The building part actually took 6 months. We had to build 63 walls. We had carpenters, we had painters, we did murals, we did black lights. We wanted to set an atmosphere. We had special electrical needs, and we wanted an atmosphere that actually talked about the myth or reality. That's crickets, yeah, because if you're on the extraterrestrial highway out by Rachel, that's what you hear. This is glyphs and Drake's formula. We have black lights. This is, of course, one of the things we felt necessary as the National Atomic Testing Museum. I'm not just a historical museum, but I also do science and technology. So I had to have some science and technology in there. And one of the things we found out is people don't know how long it takes to travel through space. They don't know the possibilities of traveling through space. They don't know what we've done to communicate with people or extraterrestrials. And so we worked with the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. We worked with the people who put Voyager out. Voyager has the golden record, which is words and sounds of Earth to any extraterrestrial who can get up there and play a long playing record. We had a lot of questions that we wanted people to think about.
People ask all the time, have you found anything yet? And I have to tell them, well, look, if we had, you would have read about it in the papers. We haven't found a signal yet. But the speed of the search is increasing, and consequently, I'm kind of optimistic that we'll find something within a few decades.
That is Dr. Seth Shostak, and Seth is from SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. They actually came aboard. We have a copy of the WOW signal, the only unexplained signal ever given, received by SETI. And Seth himself is coming to the museum on November 3rd to talk a little bit about the search. One of the things we're adding next month is that you'll be able to put your own things, your own message, and SETI will be sending out those messages at the end of July. Besides that, of course, our Man in Black, reoccurring theme through the exhibit, along with the artifacts that you might find. These are artifacts actually from the government. We wanted to have atmosphere. So there are sounds, there are different lights, green lighting, and we wanted to answer some other questions.
So we got to handle some of their equipment, we reverse engineered it, and we got our answers.
That, of course, talks about reverse engineering, and we do have a section on that. And, of course, we had to have a mothership, and the mothership actually beams down on a very special artifact, which you're going to have to come to the exhibit to see. Something that most people...
What is required at this time is to make it permissible for scientists to engage in research of the topic without risking ridicule or their livelihood.
That's Dr. John Alexander, and one of the things he says is you should be able to talk about UFOs, you should be able to talk about them in a credible way, you should be able to talk about them without being ridiculed. One of the things the museum very much wanted to do was have a forum, a place where people could come and we could talk about the one side, the other side, all the sides together. And so we have created a lecture series to do just that. We're in our 4th lecture. We have lectures about planes and that part of the thing. We then have lectures. George Knapp did a wonderful lecture. You're going to see a little bit of that. We have, coming in September, senior military officials who worked for Project Blue Book, who worked for the UK government, and who have explored for years the credible UFO sightings, and they're going to talk about them for the first time. We had to have some aliens. These are the untouched photographs, original photographs of UFOs. This comes from the Bigelow Airspace Archives. Bob Bigelow has spent 20 years collecting what he considers credible UFO photographs. And Bob was kind enough to open his archives, open the actual paperwork where we see who took the picture, when it was taken, and each of these pictures has been analyzed. None of them are photoshopped, none of them are fake, they are all real. And Bob Bigelow has actually let us show them for the first time. You've seen copies of some of these, but he has all the originals.
You can leave now, but remember, this mission may not be over yet.
And so we have our man in black who tells you you're headed out there. We had to set the stage for this exhibit because it was just too good theater not to. So we had Robbie the Robot. Robbie the Robot is the very first science fiction robot. It was built by Dylan here, who is an Eagle Scout. This was his Eagle Scout project. It's actually built to scale. He had 50 people help him build it. And he brought it in, and he's extremely proud of this. This is a photo opportunity in our lobby. We also have our aliens and our mushroom cloud. The mushroom cloud is 7 foot high. This was an art project from a UNLV student. You can't go to Area 51 unless you encounter a camo dude. And this is our camo dude who actually checks your badges, might ask you about your secret orders. You do get badges. We have badges of the real people with stories on the back of what they do. And then we have our aliens that are original to our drawings and what they do. This is a sign going into the exhibit. When you see the prohibited articles at the bottom, these are the prohibited articles on the Nevada test site, Creech Air Force Base, and Nellis Gunnery Range, so they are prohibited on Area 51 too. This, of course, is the restricted sign for Area 51 and the extraterrestrial highway. We invite you to experience this exhibit by starting out going down this highway. The interesting thing about the extraterrestrial highway is that it was actually put through by Lieutenant Governor Lonnie Hammergren as a way to get tourists to drive out in the middle of Nevada to nowhere. And Lonnie's actually one of our board members, so he's real proud that we're doing the extraterrestrial highway. So once you have the exhibit, you have to market it, and we wanted to think out of the box. So this is the parking garage roof on our side of our building. And here you see artists painting our logo and Area 51 logo, Myth or Reality, very large. That's because we are in the flight path of McCarran Airport, and every day, every 5 or 10 minutes, planes fly over this. And so people actually look out the window and see it. We also are in the flight path for the Janet Airlines, the people that fly back and forth to Area 51, and so they get to see it every day too. We have banners. And we have our door. Again, this is our Area 51 logo. It's a very interesting logo because it actually looks like a spaceship, but isn't. We have the black mailbox there. It's white now. We get people that actually make that comment. But we put the black mailbox because that is one of the myths, that if you put information in the black mailbox, the aliens will get it. We have been on Coast to Coast with George Norrie. He's one of our partners, along with George Knapp, who does the weekends on Coast to Coast. We've all appeared on that. We've been in the Huffington Post. Robin Leach is one of the people who has jumped on board to help get the word out, Yahoo, a number of places. This is our mobile billboard, both sides. This goes up and down the strip to let people know that we are there. One of the things when you're in a museum in Las Vegas is you compete with the strip, and so you have to entice the people to come to your museum. Besides this is, of course, we built it, and this is one of the opening days. It was people from one end of the museum lobby to the other waiting to get in. So it's been a very successful thing for us, and we hope that you'll come and experience that exhibit. Besides that, we're doing 18 months of special programs. We're doing lectures, and the people that come to lecture talk about things they've never talked about before anywhere else. And we do have our lecture series this year. We have it available for sale at the table. But this is George Knapp.
And, you know, while I have spoken many times in public about Area 51 and about Bob Lazar and some of the crazy stuff that's happened, the general topic of UFOs, at least some of these tales here tonight have not been told in any detail at all. And I'm going to reveal the existence of a witness who was whispering in my ear back then.
So that's part of George's lecture.
Now, we will look at you.
And that's part of John Alexander's lecture. We do ask that when they come, that they not only bring original material, but they try to entertain our guests. So that's the end of my presentation, or is it? It's the exhibit itself changes. I get new things all the time. When I go back from here, I'm going to be putting some more crash debris in. It's reported to be either UFO or airplane, and I have both sides of the stories. I have MUFON that just contacted me, and the head of MUFON's not only coming out for the lecture, but they're adding stuff to the exhibit. So we're working with more and more people all the time. This will change. If you get to Las Vegas, Nevada, and you get tired of those slot machines, come on down Flamingo Avenue. We'll be glad to see you. Do you have any questions? Yes.
Are you a public museum, a private museum? How are you funded?
We are funded privately. We are a private 501c3. We have a board, and we are a program of the Nevada Test Site Historical Foundation. So we do not receive money as a Smithsonian affiliate. Any other questions? Actually, we're doing pretty darn good. Yeah.
For that fascinating presentation. I just have a couple of quick announcements, and then we're going to take our lunch break a little bit early. But I do want to invite everyone to be back for this afternoon's lecture. We have one of the world's foremost researchers into the 1947 Roswell UFO crash, Mr. Dennis Balthasar. And he will be with us at 1:30 to speak on the 1947 crash event. And by the way, a group of us UFO researchers had a chance to drive out to the Foster Ranch this week, where the debris was found by a sheep rancher named Mac Brazel in July 1947. And Dennis will give you all the ins and outs of what happened back then in 47. It was a tremendous experience. We are doing a lecture with video and information about the Foster Ranch degree field tomorrow morning. E.J. Wilson, my co-author, and I. So we will have a full day of lectures tomorrow as well. Our lecture on the Foster Ranch degree field is tomorrow at 9 a.m. After Dennis's presentation this afternoon, which begins at 1:30, we've got Dr. Donald Burleson, who is the New Mexico Director for MUFON, Mutual UFO Network. And he has a very curious connection that he makes between the death of Marilyn Monroe and UFOs. According to Dr. Burleson's theory, Marilyn Monroe, because of her connection to the Kennedys, became exposed to some UFO information that she was not supposed to know about. And this may have contributed to her being murdered. So you'll want to listen to Dr. Burleson's talk based on his book, UFOs and the Murder of Marilyn Monroe. All of our lectures are in here in Bassett Auditorium, and they're free. Full schedule today and tomorrow. And we also still have spaces remaining on our narrated van tours of the former Roswell Army Airfield, where the UFO incident here in town happened back in 47. At 12:30 and 3 o'clock today, we had to move our schedule up a little bit because of the parade that happens at 6 tonight. So if anybody would like to go out on one of our narrated van tours, we'll have the 2 today, and we have 2 or 3 tomorrow. So just see Mr. E.J. Wilson at the back table. We will start promptly at 1:30. I hope everybody has a good lunch and rejoins us. Please take time to visit the exhibitors' tables as well as the wonderful museum, including the Goddard rocket displays. We'll see you at 1:30. Thanks a lot.